I'll do the donk.
Like,
Just a brother and sister
Hello.
hang out.
Yeah.
Chatting about media. Lol. Donk.
Report!
Okay.
Okay. So, welcome to a... What's it even called? Okay, I'll start again. Welcome to a new Club Donk special covering the entirety of the Harry Potter series. It's a little bit off topic, but because the whole podcast or series is about media and philosophy, it deserves its own spin-off special, I think. And so we're here with my sister, Sylvia.
Hello.
We've both been reading the books from beginning to end, as one usually does read a book.
Yeah.
And we're just going to cover probably all the same points that every other criticism of Harry Potter covers, but hopefully with some cool new angles. So we're doing one episode for each book. So this is the book one, but we're probably also going to cover a bunch of general stuff too, because that's what first episodes and first books tend to do. Okay.
Cool.
Anyway, back to what we were talking about. I can edit a little bit too, so like we don't need to worry too much about the flow and shit.
Yeah, cool. Like there's 6 chapters before they even get to Hogwarts, you know?
Yeah, I found
Like
the
half
intro. Sorry, what was that?
half the book is set up, you know?
Yeah, I found the intro really long too. I was like, man, I'm surprised I even got through this as a child. Not that I read it myself anyway. My mom read it. Mom read it to us.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like, there's all those chapters where they're not even at Hogwarts yet, and yeah, like all this magical stuff is happening, and like he's going to, you know, like one of the chapters is Diagon Alley, and then like the journey to Hogwarts and shit. Like magical stuff is happening, but like not really. Like not that much is going on, you know. And then even when they get to Hogwarts, like I guess it's just because we're reading back, but I kind of wondered. Like I obviously was too young to be reading them to myself or like really have much of a choice about what was being read to me, but like not much happens in the book, you know? Like
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's fair enough that like the first book is like a testing ground for all the different ideas and all the different possibilities, and then it does develop a huge amount over the series, which I think is really cool. And I'm on the 7th book now, and by the 7th book, I think it's like for older readers too. And there's like it even is going more into like, while it's going near to like a sense of lore or like, you know, like a magical system and shit, which is like far from what they're trying to do in the first book. Like the first book, it's all set up, but it doesn't really set it up that much either, you know?
No, well, because like there's no like exposition, you know, like nobody really tells Harry anything. Something will happen, and then he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then later, someone is like, "Oh, this is because this and this," and he's like, "Well, like,
yeah,
I don't know about this."
Well, I think that's like one of the cool elements of the book, though, is that heaps of it is about the mystery and like unraveling things. And the first mystery is like, what the fuck even is this magical world or whatever.
When I guess also like from a writing point of view, like it's a good way to write, because then, you know, later in all the other books when all these new things are being introduced, it's not like it's been ignored in the first book, you know?
It's like no, it was just foreshadowing
to talk about this and this. Like but yeah, I mean, yeah, heaps of it's just like laying the groundwork of like who the characters are. And like, oh, that's something I wanted to say, is that like the book is so much better, obviously, and we've talked about this, like it's so much better than the movies, but like in the book there's so many more characters, you know? Like she creates the school, with so much more depth than they bother to with the movies. Like there's all the other students in their year and other years and stuff that are like named.
Yeah.
And they're like friends and stuff.
And they have personalities and they have relationships and stuff.
Yeah, one like I don't think so much in the first one, but anyway, you know, like Pansy Parkinson is like
Oh yeah,
a way bigger character, and she's kind of like Hermione's nemesis, you know?
Yeah.
Like she's always so
and
horrible.
Malfoy's girlfriend.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then like she's I don't know. I mean, she might be in the movies, but she's not like a named character, you know, with anything going on.
Yeah. Well, I think like one of the big failings of the movies is that it's tried to focus on the magic and then use the kind of general overall arc of the plot to just like make a cool action movie out of the magic. But the books are not really about the magic. You know, like it's not like other fantasy books or like especially in anime, like they go like really into like the systems of the magic or like the kind of spiritual or energetic powers or whatever and how they work and shit. It's like a trope kind of in anime. But like it's so much more about the story and the characters and kind of just like life. You know, like the characters are so distinct and I didn't really obviously I was like a child when I was reading it, so you kind of just absorb it. But you know, there's like Dean and Seamus and shit, and like everyone's like got real personalities, and it's kind of like a big part of it is like just dealing with other people. You know, like everyone's annoying. Like everyone's got their negative parts.
Yeah, well, like they hate Hermione for ages, you know, and Ron's always like, God, that girl is so annoying. I hate that girl. I hope she's not in Gryffindor. And then she gets in Gryffindor. He's like, no. It's like, yeah, they all have like proper personalities.
Yeah, like even especially as the books go on, like from maybe the fourth book or maybe the fifth book, and like Harry's like negative personality traits start to come out and he starts to get like overwhelmed by all the pressure and like
yeah, I know, because I've just finished the fifth one where like for the first half of the book it's just Harry being awful to everyone.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, look, we understand, we get it, but can you stop being a dick to like your best friends? And he's like, oh
no,
I hate you though.
You didn't mail me.
Yeah, I know.
It's like Dobby taking my mail all over again.
Oh, he has a hard run of it, eh?
Who?
Harry.
Oh, Harry. Yeah, I thought you meant Dobby.
Nah, I don't know. Dobby's like a fine character, but I never really like. I don't care.
So going back to the beginning.
Yes.
Which is what we're doing really, because it's such a foundational like piece of media or literature for kids now, for our like generation or whatever. But like I'm like so like the kind of story and the not even lore, but like the kind of like overall story is so like embedded that going back to the very beginning, I was kind of like, it really doesn't tell you much. Or like, I don't know, like I was kind of surprised coming to it afresh at how like basic it was or something. Like why would he have not realized that he was doing magic? Or you know, like there's like a bit of like it's like a bit too like I'm for stories like foregoing the details for the purpose of the overall plot, because like plot has meaning in itself or whatever. But there's like a whole bunch of stuff that's just kind of like, oh, we don't need to deal with that. We'll just brush over that for now.
I was thinking about exactly that this morning, and I kind of got to the point, you know, like that all these things keep happening to him before he gets the letter and finds out that he's a wizard, that are like fully inexplicable, and he never thinks, you know, like he's 11, he's a kid. If weird shit like that was happening to me when I was 11, I would be like, ooh, what if I'm like magic, you know? And
yeah, like Voldemort was.
Yeah. When like, you know, like the only one that we read about in first person is like when the glass disappears. But like, that's, you know, at the zoo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like such a weird thing to happen. And I kind of was like, oh, well, maybe he's just like so sad and downtrodden and has never like watched any movies or like read any books, that he doesn't have like imagination, you know? But then I kind of was like, maybe I'm just trying to get too much from it as reading a children's book as an adult, you know? Like,
Well, it actually was. It kind of reminded me of the way that Howl's Moving Castle is written, which is like a bit whimsical, you know? Like it's like, and kids' books, picture books too, tend to be like whimsical and not logical, you know? Like it's more like about getting a reaction from the kids or like inspiring imagination or something, rather than like the pieces fitting together. Because like ultimately it doesn't really matter.
no, well, of course, like it's better for the book to have him, you know, this huge giant or half giant turn up and be like, "You're a wizard, Harry," and he's like, "Oh my god," rather than like, "Oh, I'd hoped this was what was going on," you know.
Also, that whole sequence is so ridiculous. Like how Uncle Vernon freaks out to the point that they like. I mean, okay, let's say that it's fair that he would freak out to the point to take them away to a hotel, okay? Which I think is a bit far-fetched already. But then they like go out to this rock on the sea. Like, what the fuck? They're like so obsessively normal. And like they're so obsessed with their like reputation and like, you know, like protecting Dudley and like whatever, all that shit. And then they're like, no, we're gonna go out to this fucking rock on the sea to avoid like magical letters from the magic school. It's like,
it's so weird, eh? And there's that bit where like Dudley is like, is dad gone crazy? It's like,
yes.
He literally has.
Slash like the borderline between normal and crazy is much finer than like the borderline between alternative and crazy, I think.
Yeah. Lol.
Yeah.
What else even happens? Oh yeah, it was like, I don't know, like reading all the books, but the first one as well. I'm just like so surprised that like Snape is allowed to be like a teacher.
Same.
You know? Like he's abusive and
Yeah.
he's so awful, like to Harry obviously, but like, you know, like to just kind of skip to the third one quickly, but like when Neville's boggart becomes Snape, and it's like your teacher or one of your teachers should not be the thing you fear most in the world.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, there's a few things like that it's like, why aren't you going to like, well, one hand, why isn't Harry going to Dumbledore and McGonagall and being like, Snape's low-key abusing me? Oh, I guess he grew up with abuse though. He might have like a bit of like a overly accepting attitude or something.
But then I guess, you know, it's like the whole rest of the class. I mean, not the Slytherins, I doubt they care, but like all the Gryffindors are just like witnessing this abuse and are like, oh well. And like it's not like
but
they
also like Snape is like deeply connected with Dumbledore, and he's like right, and he's like almost Dumbledore's right hand man, you know.
Yeah.
And like, why isn't Dumbledore like, hey, so Harry's kind of important to this whole operation. Could you Loki stop abusing him?
Well, also like Dumbledore's supposed to be this like, you know, the best wizard, this really kind man, and he doesn't say like, maybe just don't take out your like internal hatred of other shit on the children that you teach, you know?
Yeah, slash like he should probably have enough insight to be like, I think you need a bit of emotional healing and like maybe we should work on that together.
Yeah.
But I think it's especially towards the like second half of the series or whatever, he becomes more of this like he's still nice, but it's more of like a wise figure, like an Earthsea or whatever, where it's like a lot of it's about not meddling and like not sticking your hand out.
Yeah, when he really, like in the fifth one, you know, he's really saying that he's like, I spent all these years trying to make you happy right now rather than actually doing what's best for you. But in the first one, you know, like, he is that, like, kind grandfatherly figure.
Yeah,
you know?
to Harry only.
Only to Harry.
It's funny, it comes up in the 7th one. Like, he leaves Harry, Ron, and Hermione each a, like, obscure object that they don't understand, and then the ministry's trying to figure out what they're doing and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you guys are the only 3 students that he left anything to by name. And, like, he's like to Ron, like, did you have, like, a particularly close relationship with Dumbledore? And he's like, not really. I mean, yes. And then, like, in Harry's head, it's like, no, they've, like, never been alone in a room together. And I was already thinking that before that. Like, there's not a single conversation between Dumbledore and another student. And, like, I don't think they even really... It's kind of weird, actually, because, like, at like, the schools that we went to, you'd kind of have, like, some contact with the principal, right? At least, like, you'd probably... Maybe not.
Well, I was just thinking that. I don't know if I ever was alone in a room, at least not with my, like, high school principal.
Yeah.
I would have been alone with my primary school principal.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's not that weird. Maybe
But
I've
I
just
guess
forgotten what school is like.
Even though, but, like, I don't know, even if I had been alone in a room with my high school principal, it would have been, like, to talk about something, you know, like...
Because you're in trouble.
Yeah, or, like, you know, I want to start up this club, or, like, put on this event kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like a meeting.
Yeah.
But, like, Dumbledore's, like, friends with Harry, you know? Cute.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, though, because Harry... Yeah, I mean, because of all the stuff that happens, which I imagine that we'll be getting to later. Yeah. Before I read Harry Potter, we actually, like, mentioned Harry Potter in a couple of the other episodes, partly because of its, like, lack of magical system, and it's, like, pretty stupid, really. Like, firstly, like, having this thing that's like there's magic people and not magic people is kind of stupid, but then there's also magic people who just crop up out of the non-magic people. It's like,
yeah,
why?
Right?
But
It's
then also
so...
you have to have a wand to do magic, which is also kind of weird. Like, if you are a magic person already, why do you need to have a wand?
I was thinking about this as well, because, like, they say you have to have a wand. I was just thinking about, like, being expelled from Hogwarts, because there's all these times throughout all the books where Harry's like, fuck, I'm gonna get expelled.
Yeah,
and
almost
I'm never
every book.
gonna do magic again.
Yeah.
But it's like, that doesn't even make sense, you know? Like, the government is like, well, if you get expelled from school, we're gonna break your wand in half. Which is kind of bizarre anyway, because it's like, oh, you failed, like, your license test, so we're gonna, like, fuck up your car, you know? But then, like, Hagrid gets expelled and they break his wand in half, and then he puts it in an umbrella and does magic anyway. So
Yeah,
which
like... is weird, because later Harry's wand... Well, when Ron's wand is broken, he like can't hardly use it at all. He's like, it backfires on him and all that shit. And then later, and when Harry's wand is broken, he can't use it at all. Yeah.
I know. There's no, like, internal consistency. Yeah.
But also, you can get another wand made, because Neville and Ron both get new wands. So, like, if you get expelled and your wand gets broken, like, there's not really anything stopping you from, say, going to, like, one of the other wand makers, like, not Ollivander, or, like, one overseas and just getting another wand and doing magic anyway.
But even if you get expelled from Hogwarts, does that mean you wouldn't be allowed to go to, like, Durmstrang or Beauxbatons?
I don't see why not, especially Durmstrang.
Yeah, right? Well, and also there's got to be a number of students, or not students, but, like, you know, wizard children who are homeschooled and stuff anyway, right?
That's something else I wanted to talk to, actually, because, like, there is mention of that. There's, like, a thing where, like, in the 7th book, that when they take over the ministry, they make it mandatory to go to Hogwarts, whereas before it wasn't, and some people were homeschooled. But I also wonder, like, what the fuck are they doing for the first 10 years of their life before they... Where do
I
they
know.
like? Is there no primary school? Like, where do they learn to read and write? And where do
Yeah.
they don't learn any magic? Like, that's
Yeah,
weird.
because Ron turns up and he doesn't know how to do fucking anything. And it's like, you're from like, an old pureblood wizarding family. Like, the only thing they seem to do that's magical is like ride brooms, right?
Yeah, and I guess they're exposed to like the law and like the parents' magic.
I know, but wouldn't you? Yeah, like they're spending 10 years at home, presumably with their parents.
Doing
Wouldn't you
what?
think, like, this spell, you move your hand like this so that when you do get a wand and you're allowed to practice these things at school, you're like set up to do it? Well, like all the stuff about like potion making and herbology, a lot of that stuff you'd be able to do
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah, like I mean, shouldn't there be some kind of like foundational training? Because then they just go straight into these like spells, which like that is also pretty abstract. Like you just do this shape with your wand and say the right word and then it's magic.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing to do with this like you're supposed to have magic in you if you're a witch or wizard, right? But you don't really connect with that at all. You kind of just have to, it's just the material, it's just the fuel, and then like you just have to do these. But then you can also create spells, obviously.
Yeah, right. Because like Snape does that and shit, and like obviously all the spells have been created at some point. But then, like it's about you saying the right word and doing the right movement. But then like in the fifth one, when they're at the ministry, one of the Death Eaters, someone puts a spell on him that he can't speak.
Yeah.
And he still can do a spell on Hermione and like fuck her up. So it's like, well, what are the fucking rules?
Well, but then in the sixth one, Snape starts teaching them how to do non-verbal spells or whatever, and they all find it really hard because they're used to doing it the verbal way. But you just have to kind of like do
like
it in your head or something.
Okay.
But the like more advanced wizards do seem to have a bit more of like a fluid relationship with magic, like Voldemort and Dumbledore. Like they use spells, but then they also seem to kind of just be able to manipulate magic. And like when they go in the sixth one where they go off and like look for the Horcrux and shit, like Dumbledore talks about how you like magic always leaves traces, so if you can like sense those traces, then you can like start to figure out what's been done there and try and undo it and shit. So there, towards the end at least, there is like some kind of natural system of magic that you can tap into, but it's like she didn't think of it for the first 5 books or something.
Yeah, she was just like bumbling along. But then I've read shit that says that she spent like 10 years planning out all the books. So it's like, from what that makes it sound like, is she knew where it was going, or like a lot of the detail from the beginning, but she like didn't think about
but the
it.
detail,
the first book too complicated as well, I suppose.
I think she'd been probably figuring out the detail of the story and not the mechanics.
I guess so. I just think that like the world, like personally, I think the world is almost the more interesting part. So I'm like, why would you not figure out exactly how the world works and then do the plot,
Yeah, same. And that's kind of why I've kind of talked down about Harry Potter in the past. But then like there's all different kinds of fiction. So like some fiction is bound to be more about the story and the relationships, which having read it again, it's like kind of cool. And it's like emotional in that way, like it's touching in a lot of places.
The people are the like point of it, like the people that come into the later books as well, that you really, like Sirius and shit, and like even Cedric Diggory in the fourth one, like that's so the point of those books is like the relationships with them.
Yeah, and the whole kind of plot line about, or like kind of theme about love, like love versus darkness, or like love versus fear or whatever, which ends up actually being the crux of it. Did you just finish the fifth one?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like a bunch more about that in the sixth one, and Harry's like, love, whatever, big deal. Like, I'm just like a run of the mill level of skill, you know.
I'm just a guy.
And Dumbledore was like, no, it's all about love and shit.
Yeah. We're not like prioritizing wanting to live forever over anything else, right?
Yeah.
Which was ridiculous.
Which is actually kind of a theme in the first book too, with the whole Philosopher's Stone and shit.
Yeah.
Hey, have you got the American editions, eh?
No.
Huh.
What do you mean?
Like, is your one called?
Stone, not the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah,
No,
I had to get mine up from the library here, and it was a Sorcerer's Stone. I was like, ugh. And there's some dumb bits where, like, instead of it being a fringe, it's called bangs and shit. It's like, fuck off. Just leave that shit in there and let American kids figure it out.
Yeah, right. Because I read so many books when I was a kid where it said bangs, and I for just ages was like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Like,
also, there's a whole bunch of way harder words in there that are not cultural. They're just hard words, especially for kids, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty good though.
Yeah. So they come to Hogwarts.
Yes, they do.
I'm kind of like curious about how they decided what was necessary magical education as well, to be honest.
I think about this more than just like in reading these books. Because, like, for one, all the spells they are learning are like Latin words or have their roots in Latin words. Why aren't they learning Latin?
Good question. Also, like, yeah, like there's nothing that gives them access to like the underlying principles of magic. That's the issue that I have.
Well, also, like, I just think it's such a huge disservice to them that the history of magic teacher is like a boring old ghost that nobody listens to. Because, like, all the stuff they mention about how he's droning on about like the goblin wars and stuff, it's like, that's fucking cool. And like, this kid has come from like, you know, a muggle school.
Oh yeah.
Where history has not got goblins fighting wars. Wouldn't he be like, whoa, cool, bro?
But also, it seems to be like the history of the magical world, not the history of magic itself.
I feel like that's because that's what the teacher's personal choice was. I'm criticizing Professor Bin specifically.
Well, obviously, it's like modeled on an English school, which actually is like one of the things that I think made me really want to read the books again, is because it's like this real English environment, which I know is tacky, but it's kind of like a intergenerational nostalgia kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
I've got English heritage, and like, what would it be like to be an English guy, not like a exported like island immigrant guy.
Yeah, which is real cute. It is fun. I mean, what else are they even doing in the first book? Because they haven't started their like elective subjects. They just do like,
yeah, it's like potions, herbology, transfiguration, charms, astronomy, history.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah, like what's the point of any of those things?
Well, I mean, I see the point of like potions, obviously, and charms, but like transfiguration seems like a kind of like specific thing, you know? Like, is that not just a type of charms?
Yeah, well, I think in like I think the sixth book, Neville can't get into Newt's transfiguration because he's like didn't get a high enough grade, but he didn't choose charms because his grandma reckons it's just like the soft option, like of transfiguration or whatever. But McGonagall doesn't think that, and she's like, no, just do charms. I think and I read this description that said like charms is like about charming objects, but transfiguration is about transforming things.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess, yeah, because in the fifth one they're learning how to like vanish objects and like
And summon
the
them.
opposite of that.
Summon.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I
like,
know. And Hermione like summons birds to attack Ron because she's jealous.
no,
Was that the
that's the
sixth
sixth
one?
one. Yeah. But then, to go back to my questions about the world, where are you vanishing things to, and where are you summoning them from?
Good question.
It's like matter
Because
is like finite, right? And there's like a balance of the universe. That is
well,
like,
that's our world though. That's the Muggle
I know,
world,
but
bro.
is it different? But like, it's based in our world, presumably.
Yeah.
But is that different in this world?
Well, that's one of the things too, because in my kind of knowledge of the occult / spiritual / metaphysical, obviously there's not different planes of existence. Like you don't have like a physical existence that's separate from like the ephemeral stuff that constitutes who you are. There's
Yeah.
just like a gradient from like what is tangible, visible matter to intangible, invisible energy or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of one of the things that's lacking in terms of a system too, is that it's like they seem their bodies are just human bodies, but then they've got this magical thing. And what is that? It's just magic. Like it's like something beyond the laws of physics or something. But then it has laws. But then what are they?
Yes.
But like, I want to know where and when and how and why you would use each of the subjects. Like you have to study astronomy, but it's like you don't really see anyone using astronomy in the wizarding world. And if you really think about it, most of the people in the wizarding world are not really using magic that much. Like it's in the ministry especially, like a lot of it seems to just be like they're not very engaged with magic and what it is and what it could be. They're kind of just like everyday people, but they do the cooking with magic. And I'm not sure about that.
Even with astronomy, it's like, what are they doing astronomy for? Because everybody seems to think that like divination is a bullshit subject.
Yeah, well, it's not astrology though, because then they have astrology later too with the centaurs.
What are they getting from knowing about the stars and the planets is what I mean, if not for like fortune telling purposes or whatever,
I mean, yeah, what do we get out of astronomy? Or like astrophysics and shit.
I guess so.
But we don't have to study it in school.
Like I think that's the subject that we attend least as well. Like I don't know if we've in the books ever gone to an astronomy lesson. Like I just in the fifth one they're sitting there owls and they're doing their astronomy one, and I was like, I don't know, and like sometimes they'll mention the Professor Sinistra or whatever.
Yes.
Who is sometimes. Like really occasionally. She just was like, I don't want to write about astronomy lessons.
She's not dramatic. She's not part of the overall plot, so it doesn't really matter. The only reason that exam is in the plot is because then they see Hagrid getting attacked.
Under cover of darkness.
Yeah, so obviously like most of the setup and the setting is like to be a vehicle for like the drama and the mystery, which is fair enough. Like it can be just mostly a mystery story. But that brings us to the main kind of plot line of the Philosopher's Stone, which is like them trying to figure out who's trying to steal the stone and why, and they think it's Snape and like all that shit.
Yeah.
Which bro, I mean, like, I don't know if there's anything I could set up to say this better, but like, how is the stone like in a place where 3 first years could like figure it out and like
Yeah,
let
I know.
alone get in there?
It's absurd.
And he tells them basically where it is. They're like, "All right, not gonna say why, but you can't go in that door."
I know. Well, like the fact that the only thing, keeping that door locked is like a standard lock that Aloha Mora
That everyone
unlocks.
knows.
Yeah. And then there's a 3-headed dog on the other side. It's
Which
like,
no one tries to kill.
it's so irresponsible.
No one's like, "Oh, we'll just blast this guy out of the way," like about
Yeah.
or whatever.
I know.
No, I'm gonna
'Cause,
sing it a song so it goes to sleep.
when it's like once you've read the other ones, like in the fourth one when he's like fighting the dragon and stuff, and like they have to have what, like 12 wizards stunning it or something for it to do anything. But it's like that's an animal that has like a really thick skin and
Yeah, magical skin.
yeah. When doesn't Harry, is it that or is it something else where Harry realizes that if you go for like the mouth or something, it's way more tender and then like your
Oh, the
spells work.
eyes. Yeah, someone does like a
Yeah.
conjunctivitis.
When it's
Whatever.
like if that dog is trying to like bite you, its mouth is gonna be open and its eyes are gonna be right there. Can't you just like do some spells in the soft bits of this already soft animal? Like,
Yeah, I mean, obviously it turns out it's not Snape trying to get in there, but Snape would have definitely been able to get past that dog. And
yeah.
like, but even
Any of
Quirrell,
the teachers, surely,
what's
because
that?
they are like at any of the teachers, because they are adults who have had like a 7-year magical education, and then
Plus.
yeah, one then had all these years of just being a wizard or witch or whatever.
When they're like kind of at the top of their field, otherwise they wouldn't be the teachers. Like they're all, it's like McGonagall and Snape and shit. They're all like right at the top of their game.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously they're not trying to get in there. But wouldn't everyone be trying to get in there? I guess they're scared off by the fact that it's Hogwarts.
I know, but like, wouldn't, like the twins can't be the only like naughty troublemakers in the school. Surely people are like, oh, I wonder why we can't go here. Let's have a little look.
Well, how many people are there in the school really? Because like in their
Yeah,
year
not
in
that many.
what's that?
Not that many, right? Because like there's 5 boys in their year in Gryffindor.
Is it 5? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you assume that there's like 5-ish people, so that means there's
Of each gender. So 10. So 40 each year.
40 times 7, which is what, 280?
280.
That's not that many people.
I guess it's more than I thought. And there might be more, they might have had a small year or something. But then
that's another thing, right? Is like they can't every year have an equal distribution of the characters of these. Like surely some years there's like maybe 2 or 3 Gryffindors and like 10 Slytherins, right? Just because of like the people that come are different.
Yeah, well, and I wondered if like some of them just aren't named. Like there's like Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, and Pansy Parkinson. But like there must be other people in their year, right?
Yes, because I was just reading the bit where they get sorted, and there's some names that I think are never mentioned again, like, but then there's ones that come back, like Susan Bones is talked about later.
Yeah.
And she's mentioned, and like
Hannah Abbott and shit.
And then, but then there's like Millicent Bulstrode and Mandy Brocklehurst. It's like, I don't know who those people are.
Millicent Bulstrode. Oh yeah, she comes back though.
Okay. Well then, like Justin Fletchley, he's mentioned later.
Yeah, heaps.
Yeah.
I think Millicent Bulstrode like asks Harry to the dance in the 4th one, doesn't she? And he's like shocked, and he's just like, no.
Yeah, and then he's like, I don't know why I said no. So, no.
Yeah, and then he misses out on all the like 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade chances and just has to go with like a real last resort option.
Yeah, those poor other twins, eh? And they have a real shit time.
But like, I don't know. I kind of also wondered if there were like more boys in their year who just like weren't worth the time or something. But it doesn't really seem like it. But then there's some parts where they're like, the Great Hall's like full of hundreds of people, like hundreds of seats in the Great Hall. And I don't think you would really say hundreds for 280. You know, it's kind of implies that it's more.
But then, like, I think it was saying that the Great Hall is like, you could have fit the Dursleys' whole house in it. It's like, that's not that big. Like, that's quite big, but that's not huge.
Isn't
like
it the Dursleys' house like 4 times or some shit?
Oh, is that what it says? I don't know.
Can't
Anyway.
remember.
But I don't think there's more boys in the Gryffindor year, because there's all those times where Harry is like going to bed really late and he's like, Dean and Seamus were already asleep. And Neville was like crying into his pillow and Ron's like snoring something.
Man, there's some real funny quips in there, eh? Like even at some real serious times, and then there's just like something real funny happens, like Fred or George will say something, or like something happens to Neville, like.
Yeah, and I think they get funnier as well as they go on, because I think like Harry really develops like a sense of humor and like sarcasm, particularly like with the Dursleys,
Oh,
like
yeah.
he's just like taking no shit after
He starts trolling.
Yeah, which is real entertaining.
Especially in the very last one where he says goodbye to them for the first time. Like, they're like, I've changed my mind. We're not leaving. He's like, all right, I don't care.
Okay. Whatever, bro. Isn't there one of the books, maybe it's the 6th one, which I actually, like, I've only just started it. I think I've just read the first chapter. But isn't there a bit where, like, Snape is trying to remind Harry that he has to call him Sir? And Harry's like, call me Sir, Professor.
Lol.
They are real funny, eh?
But it's like, that sense of humor is coming out of his, like, uncontrollable angst, not his wit.
I know, he's so angsty.
Going back a couple of steps, but like, how could they like set up this like protections for the Philosopher's Stone that 3 kids could get through? It's like, it's beyond ridiculous. Not just the fact that everyone knows where it is, but like they've put these like 7 or whatever enchantments on it, right?
Yeah.
But they all got a huge like door that you can just open right through the middle, like metaphorically speaking. Like, it's like, what? Who thought that just this weed was gonna keep someone out? And it's like, oh, but it doesn't matter because then there's like another thing. But you just have to catch the key, and then you just have to work out this riddle.
I know, and it's ridiculous because it's set up as like a challenge, like the way that those, and of course it's so that they can get through it and for the plot or whatever. But it's like, if you were actually making things to keep someone out, you'd make them like impossible.
Yeah.
Because who needs to get through there? Nobody.
And later down in the plot, there's like way harder ways to hide something, like the Fidelius charm that means that you can't actually find the place without being told by the secret keeper and shit. Why didn't they just do that?
It would have been so much funnier if, like Harry, Ron, and Hermione went through like all of those challenges, and so did Quirrell, and they get to the end and it's just like nothing there.
That would be smarter. Like, it's like, oh, look, there's these things. Oh, they're actually quite easy. It's like, of course it's not there, you idiot. But like, I mean, Dumbledore's one was quite smart. But like, if it wasn't for like the extreme luck that Harry has throughout the whole series, like Quirrell would have just taken it from him.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know. I guess that's one of those examples of like cool magic where Dumbledore has done something that you're like, oh, how did he do that? That's so interesting. But like, I don't know. The mirror is cool though. I really liked all the stuff about the mirror.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of obsessed with like stories about like magical objects.
Yeah.
Because they
Well,
like crop up everywhere.
it's just set up so well that he's like, oh my god, it shows you your family, you know, and he's so excited and happy. And then Ron sees whatever he sees, like success or whatever.
Yeah, it's like him not being overshadowed anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first few books are a lot more generous to the characters, though. Like everyone's like a bit realistic, but like later on, it's like, I mean, I guess it's trying to be more realistic, especially in like the seventh book, because it's like quite a dark book. But like everyone's bad qualities really just come out, like Ron can just be quite like thick, like he's just
Yeah.
like, no, what, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the characters really develop, and the books are so much more like dense and full of stuff. You know, like the fifth one, and all the kids are like, I want to be able to fight in the war too, rah rah. And for ages, it's like, yeah, I'm on their side, cool, I want them to too. And then there's a bit where Sirius is like, I don't know what's happening, but he's like, you know, there's things worth dying for, and that's why you guys aren't in this war, because you're kids and you don't get that, like, it's more important to like keep Voldemort from power than for me to keep living, you know? It's like, oh, serious, bro.
Sirius Black.
Oh. Yeah, what else happens in the book? He duels Malfoy. Or like it's gonna duel Malfoy. That happens.
Yeah, they don't actually fight until the second one, that dueling club thing. I kind of thought that they were going to have more action in the first one.
Yeah, the first one's just like quipping, you know? Malfoy will just say something dicky to him, and he's like, oh, this guy.
Yeah, but then he like really turns out to be like, it actually turns out that his family's like Death Eaters, and then he's like becoming like a Death Eater and shit. I was like, huh, that was a bit expected.
Yeah. When he's always been like, yeah, I don't know, the dark arts Slytherin. Yeah. But yeah, then his dad's like actually like Death Eater, Nazi guy.
Yeah. But also kind of like Two-Face, kind of like, oh no, I was under the Imperious charm the whole time.
Yeah. But then it's like, no, I just pretended to be under the Imperious charm so I could stay like doing stuff for you, master. Like, no, bro.
Yeah. Why is like Slytherin so blatantly dark? Like that just seems like unrealistic to me. I feel like that could have been a bit more like ambiguous or something.
When I think for it to be like, yeah, more realistic, because like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess in the later books it goes more into that Slytherin wanted the whole school to be pure blood. So there's like that. But then like it's not like all Slytherins are pure bloods.
And it's also not like everyone who thinks that pure blood is more important than Muggleborn is evil. Like it's just conservative.
When like the qualities of Slytherin House are like the hat says it's that you would go to any means to, what does it say? You'll make real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends.
Yeah.
But it's
like about cunning and stuff.
Yeah. But I guess for it to be more realistic, there should be more of like a spectrum of people in Slytherin.
Yeah, I think there should be a few people who they like can more or less get along with, and then Malfoy's like at the worst end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But they're like this weird little club that kind of hates everyone and is hated by everyone.
Yeah, they're really like separated out. Because there's all these like Quidditch games and shit where like Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw are like going for Gryffindor or something. It's like, I don't know, maybe that's part of why they like hate everyone, is they're like, oh, everybody hates us, you know, everybody thinks we're evil.
I mean, I guess it's possible. Like, it's not completely unrealistic, but it's not really like realistic. I don't think.
No, it wouldn't really. I think it's that, like, it's the same thing as how horrible Snape is that, like, the book has to have antagonists within the school.
I
So,
know, but you
like,
can have antagonists that have personality. you know,
no. No, no,
like
no.
you can have antagonists that are understandable, and you can see how their views differ and like why they're doing what they're doing and shit. Which is only like with Snape
Yeah.
and Malfoy. I mean, Malfoy's kind of explained because he just like grew up in that environment and he's trying to impress his dad. He's got daddy issues. But Snape
Yeah.
and Snape's is a bit more flimsy because like his whole thing is that he was in love with Lily, right?
Yeah.
And then it was kind of his fault. Well, it's like his fault that he ruined his relationship with her, and then it was his fault that they found out about the prophecy, and then it was kind of, oh no, it wasn't his fault they died. But anyway, he's got like all this guilt and shit. But then wouldn't that mean that he's got like both fucked up angst and regret and a bit of a soft spot for Harry, you know?
You would think so, eh? Because, like, I don't know, like, they try to give him, or she tries to give him some more, like, human stuff. Like in the fifth one, and Harry looks in the pensieve and sees Sirius and James bullying Snape.
Yeah.
And they're being really awful, and they're like, that's when he calls Lily a mudblood, and like, she's like, well, fuck you then. But it's like, I don't know, I guess it's just one of those things where you're like, well, if that is the life that you had at Hogwarts and it fucked you up that badly, why are you, as an adult, inflicting that on someone else,
Yeah. Well, I mean, cycle of
that's
violence.
Yeah, right? That's realistic.
Yeah.
But fuck that guy.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. There's
Um,
actually a lot of stuff about kind of daddy issues and shit, eh?
yeah.
Like,
When Voldemort says that when he brings him back, he's like, oh, maybe he doesn't.
who?
There's something about we both had like fucked up dads or something.
Oh, it's a Snape.
Maybe I can't remember because it can't have been to Harry. I can't remember who he says it to now.
It's in the seventh
But
book.
he's got daddy issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got huge daddy issues because his dad left his mom and was a muggle and blah blah, and then he killed his dad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then there's Barty Crouch too. Barty Crouch Jr., who's got
Yeah.
those big daddy issues, and that's why he's so obsessed with Voldemort.
He goes crazy, eh?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Full of
Yeah.
silver.
Actually, one of the things that like really struck me reading it again was like how political it is. Like all the stuff with like, I mean, there's obviously stuff about rights between like Muggleborns and like purebloods or whatever, and then
Yeah.
later on there's like, I mean, but there's like a range. Every book seems to have a bit of something. Maybe not the first one. Oh no, but there's like, yeah, there's always Hagrid who's like gets dissed for being like a half giant and like an oaf and shit. But then there's
Yeah,
like,
but it's not even really talked about in the first like few books, right? Like nobody says that he's half giant, do they?
no, they
'Cause
find out about it in the fourth one.
yeah, and there's that bit where they find out about it because yeah, Rita Skeeter writes a piece about it, and Harry is like, it's another one of those moments where Harry is like, who cares? And Ron is like, giants, blah blah blah, like they're evil and awful and violent and
Yeah,
oh my
Ron's
god,
always like that. He's got
scary.
this like real pure blood prejudice that comes up heaps like in the last couple of books.
Yeah, Buzzy, eh?
And like Hermione's always like, that's horrible. And he's like, but goblins are like blah blah blah, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But that shit is like pervasive all through it, right? And like in the fifth one at the ministry, and there's that statue that is the wizard, and then there's like a centaur, a goblin, a house elf, all like lovingly looking up at their like
Human
godlike
masters.
of a wizard. That's like, I don't know what the fuck, hey. how did they not learn from Voldemort the first time? You know, like they all talk about, and maybe it's in the fifth one, about how giants went with Voldemort and probably will again because he offered them the rights that we won't. And it's like, well, maybe in the last 15 years you should have been offering rights to creatures that deserve rights, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess a lot of it is also about this kind of like baseline human ignorance too, you know? Like that
Yeah.
we just only see this like surface layer of things. Like, but the violence the giants were horrible to us during the war, so like they're evil.
When all of the ministry and stuff, it's like, you know, not it's government. So it's like it moves slowly and it's kind of stupid system and everyone in it is just like doing their own little thing.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the like political angles too that comes up more and more, that like the ministry doesn't fucking get anything done and they're always just about like the image and the representation and not like the action and shit. Even when the like the minister changes to like the guy who's been the top aura guy and shit, and it's but then he's just like, but no, the image.
Yeah. Scrimgeour. Yeah, because I've just read the first chapter of 6, which is when Fudge is going to see the other Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's one more thing that they don't have in the movies is just Charlie Weasley is not in the movies at all, ever.
What about Bill?
Bill is.
Because he's married to Fleur.
Yeah. When he's way more, you know, like in the fifth one is, well, I was just like, I'm just looking at the chapters of the first one. And, you know, there's when Hagrid gets the dragon's egg and like Charlie comes to pick it up or whatever.
Yeah. Is that not in the first movie?
It is, but they just give it to Charlie's friends. You know?
Oh, it is his friends, isn't it? No, it is his friends anyway.
In the book?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Well, because they're going to visit him in Albania or whatever.
Yeah. But he's like in the fourth one because he comes to the Triwizard tournament.
Yeah.
And all that shit. But Bill is kind of more like the main one. You know, like he comes back to be in the order.
Yeah, kind of good point. Charlie doesn't come back.
Yeah, no, well, they do explain it. They're like, Charlie thought about coming back, but then Dumbledore wanted to get as many like abroad wizards on side. So Charlie's like working that angle. Yeah.
That's probably about it for the first book. Was there anything else that they like set up in the first book that's important?
I don't know. They set up all the stuff about that like Voldemort can't touch Harry and stuff, which is just like not explained at all. You know, Dumbledore's like, yeah, you're too young.
True.
Yeah,
I guess a lot of the foreshadowing kind of starts in the second book.
Yeah.
Which we will deal with next time.
She often, I think, like foreshadows stuff like maybe the book before or something. You know, like in the fourth book, Dumbledore says something about like, oh, I don't even know the whole castle. One time I really needed the toilet and I found a room full of toilets. And then in the fifth one, Harry's like, oh, that's the fucking room of requirement, you know?
Yeah.
Once they've found it.
And then it turns out a bunch of people know about it, but they didn't really know about it.
Yeah. What a cool room.
Yeah. I also, though, just in general, about like the series, like why I was really craving to read it or something, is that like some of the atmospheres are just so like, I don't know if it's like because they're ingrained in me because I was so young when I read them, or if they're just like really well designed or whatever. But like the kind of like castle atmospheres and like Diagon Alley and the Leaky Cauldron and the night bus and like all this kind of like real
Well,
atmospheric. What's that?
The Burrow?
Yeah.
Like, I always think about that scene in the second one where there's all the shit just like magic, you know, the dishes are being done by magic, and you see Molly's clock that has everyone on it that comes back later. So cool. That like magic world stuff, that kind of like real mundane stuff is really good.
I actually don't get off on that shit, eh? I really like the atmospheres, which are actually nothing to do with the magic. And I'm quite into like lore, which is why I kind of thought Harry Potter was dumb actually as an adult. Because like compared to something like Lord of the Rings, which has so much lore and goes so deep into like the dynamics between the different players and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like it's so like well, it's just like fantastical, you know. Like it's like okay, life's all the same, but it's way easier because we could just make magic do it.
But then, like, you know, you're comparing books written for children to books written for adults. But also, having said that, like, you know, Earthsea is like for children.
Yeah.
But there is like a depth of the world.
Huge depth. Huge depth of like magic too, like, and like the attitude, like the ethics of magic and shit. You know, like he goes in Earthsea when he like goes to train with Ogion or whatever. Is that his name?
I can't remember.
Odeon?
Yeah.
Whatever. And like they don't even do any magic, they're just like looking after the goats and shit. Like that's the real shit, I reckon. Like it's like about understanding nature, because that's what you're trying to manipulate, is like the kind of dynamics of nature or whatever. But this is just like, it's kind of like a reflection of our attitude of convenience and shit. Like we'll just make robots do it because then we don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Do you think that's just like, I don't know, like Le Guin's been writing science fiction forever, right? Like for adults.
Yeah.
And for children. Do you think that's just because she is like better at it? You know, like has more practice at it, and I don't know.
I think she's probably just deeper as a writer and more nuanced.
Yeah. I haven't read anything else J.K. Rowling has written, but
well,
I don't know.
What is there? There's just the companion books, isn't there?
No.
What?
She writes crime novels under a man's name.
Oh yeah, what's the name?
Robert Galbraith.
Yeah, I remember that from when I worked at RDB's.
Yeah. And I think she's written some like fiction, adult fiction, maybe like a couple of books or one book or something. I can like see the cover of one of them, but I never was interested to read it.
You know, I know she said she wasn't gonna like write any more of the Harry Potter story, but I really think it would be good. I reckon she should, to be honest.
I would read them.
I would read them.
I would love. There's just so much she could do with it, you know? Like she could write about. I would read stuff about like the you know, like James and Lupin and Sirius and shit.
Oh.
Like even though we know stuff about what happened to them and like know the future, I would read about like them figuring out how to become anime guy and like being there for their friend because he's a werewolf and
making the Marauders map.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
And because there's so many clues about
all the teachers are still the same teachers, but just like a bit earlier, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was thinking like it would be cool to just like see what they're doing in a few years, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would read that too.
before they have kids and shit. Though, yeah, no. Oh, we should probably get to the later stuff in other episodes
Yeah.
about like the
I know it's
later
hard not to
development.
just like keep going on into the future of them, eh?
Yeah.
And it's hard not to talk heaps about the fifth one because I've just finished it like yesterday or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, no, it's good. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final comments?
Um,
Do a summary.
a summary. I mean, yeah, it's fun. The first one's like not, I don't know, not hugely in depth of anything, but it's like laying that foundation, and it's still really fun and easy to read, eh? Which is quite nice sometimes.
Yeah, I think I read it in like 2 days or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely the first few books have that real like nostalgic atmospheric buzz too, like where he's like finally got this like home and sense of belonging and friends and like purpose or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
One last thing I wanted to say though was that like, I mean, they kind of refer to this, but I think Harry should be quite a lot more fucked up after all the stuff that's happened to him.
Yeah, totally.
Like, especially with the Dursleys. Like, he
Yeah.
should be like a little bit more like, not dark, but like damaged, I think.
Yeah. And you know, yeah, I don't know, like he comes into this whole new thing and it's like quite easy for him to like accept it all, you know, and like believe in it and believe that he's got all these like supportive adults and friends and shit.
Yeah, he's like,
Which,
he doesn't have trust issues.
yeah, which you think he would.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
you almost universally would, especially with the other kids. Like, he's just like, he sits down with Ron on the train. He's like, all right, we're friends now. I'm going to buy us lunch.
You're my best friend. Yeah, it is so nice though. You know, like he's so nervous to get to the train station and he asks that guard and the guard's like, oh, you're a dick. What are you talking about? Platform 1 3/4.
You're having a laugh, mate.
And then Mrs. Weasley is just there with all her like lovely children and she's so lovely and it's so nice like for him to meet like a mother figure, you know, immediately. And then she sends some Christmas presents and it's so cute.
Yeah, that's so cute. Though, I was kind of like, why don't they have instructions for that on the letter? Because like half the kids coming in are like Muggle born.
Yes.
And what, they're just going to turn up, they're going to do exactly what Harry did and turn up and ask the guard,
Yeah.
like, where's 9 3/4? Like, don't they have like people asking every year?
Yes. And there's got to be at least like a kid a year who is Muggle born who gets there, and there's no wizarding family around to ask, and they're like,
It just never gets on.
What the fuck? Is this a joke?
Yeah, well, like, you know, for Harry, like, Hagrid ended up coming in person because he couldn't get the letter, and so he got this full explanation, took him to the Diagon Alley and shit. But like,
Yeah.
what about like Hermione, for example, or is it Dean or Seamus? One of them's Dean.
Dean.
Like, they would have just got a letter, and they're like, "All right, I'm going off to Diagon Alley."
This just occurred to me. Maybe the Muggle-borns, because Harry isn't Muggle-born. Maybe the Muggle-borns get a different letter, you know, that has more information about shit.
Maybe.
Like, you know, that's a plausible
so.
explanation
Yeah,
for
sure.
how Hermione managed to go with her dentist parents to Diagon Alley.
Which they do in the end. Like, they meet there that summer.
Yeah. When she comes to school fully prepared with all of her stuff.
Yeah, I guess they would have gone there the first time together too. But like, there's also like Aunt Petunia is like oh, when the letter came, like my parents were so proud. It's like she's not like some fucking weird wizard came and like took her around Diagon Alley and shit. It's just like a letter comes and it's like, all right, turns out there's a whole world I didn't know about, and I'm just gonna go off and be part of that now.
I know, would not more Muggle parents just be like, what a stupid joke?
Yeah. Like imagine if Harry didn't exist and it had come to Dudley.
They'd go fucking, I guess it would be like the same thing would happen though, right? That like more and more letters would arrive and they'd be like, this joke's getting out of hand, and then someone would turn up and be like, take this
Hagrid would turn up.
Yeah. That's what I want. I did find it like, I don't know, like as I was reading it, it was clear, but even now, like a few weeks after reading it, I can't entirely remember what happened in the first book versus movie, because I've just seen the movie so many times, you know?
Yeah, see, I haven't really seen the movies. I watched a few of them recently because I was having this craving for like Harry Potter vibes.
Yeah.
But that was why I read the books, because they just like didn't do it for me. Like they just don't have the essence in there. They've just got the aesthetic, which is good. The aesthetic's really good.
Yeah. When I guess I watched them all as they came out when I was like, I don't know, however old. Like I remember
must have missed the first one.
I missed the first one, and actually I missed the second one because Jane Tollerton took me to it. And in the second one, they start in herbology and they're repotting the mandrakes, and she pulls out the baby and it screams, and I was like, we gotta go. I'm not watching this. This is too scary.
That's the scary bit.
Yeah, like 5 minutes into the movie, and I was like, nah, I'm not doing this.
Yes.
But like I think I have a way more like nostalgic like relationship with them. Like I remember going to a sleepover once where we watched all of them.
How?
In a row. We were up for like so long. It took so long.
Is that even possible?
Well, I mean, yeah. I think we turned them off at a certain point and went to sleep for a while, and then in the morning we kept going.
Oh.
But it's a lot of hours, and it was actually no fun at all.
Yeah, I'm nearly finished, so it's all good, but I start to feel a bit like the marathon is like a bit of a mission, because it's like you got to keep going, you got to get to the end, but it's like I don't know.
I even felt that with 5, because so much of 5 is like not enjoyable in a lot of ways, you know? And like Harry keeps saying throughout the whole book, he's like, I've lost everything that I love about Hogwarts apart from like Ron and Hermione. You know, he's like, there's no Quidditch, there's no Dumbledore, there's no like everything's awful. And you're reading this like 800-page book of this depressed teenager being like, everything's shit. I was like, fuck, bro.
Oh, there's plenty of good moments though.
Yeah.
I kind of wish some of the other books were longer so that you'd get more in there, you know, like more detail and more like I think they must have told her to stop making them so long after the 5th one, and then she like cut them down.
Well, the 7th one, it's not much smaller than the 5th one, but the 6th one's smaller.
I think the 7th one's significantly smaller.
It's not.
I think there's like 600 pages.
7, I can see it on my shelf. 7 is maybe a little bit smaller than 4, which is a little bit smaller than 5, but it's bigger than the 6th one.
Yeah, I remember when 4 came. 4 was the first one that came out while I was still already reading them. And like I was like, fuck, that's fucking big. And then the next one came out, I was like, fuck, I'm never gonna get through this.
Yeah, they are fucking huge, eh?
And now I'm reading them all the second time, so I've really come a long way in my life.
No, they're worth it. It's fun.
Cool. Well, that was our introduction to the Harry Potter series and the first book. Obviously, there's a lot more to say in the other books, so we should probably just leave it there and we
We
can
can
get
leave
on
it
with
for
it.
those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all the really dank stuff comes out in the like 5th, 6th, 7th. Especially the 7th one.
Fuck. They're so good. They're so
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, you're in for a wild ride now for the 6th one, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember reading the 6th and 7th ones as well. Like, I remember reading 4 and 5 really, like, quite vividly. 5 in particular, because, you know, even just rereading it, it just makes me so angry. The Umbridge stuff just really gets me.
Yeah.
But I don't remember reading 6 and 7. I
I
think I
do,
did.
but don't remember a lot of the details of 7. Don't know why. Maybe I was just not interested because I was too old when that came out.
I remember when the 7th one came out, because Mum took me. I was in the car, but took Grace to like the warehouse in Petone to get it because everywhere else was like sold out or something. Buzzy.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.
Okay, stay tuned for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.